In fact, we can start with that question. So we're recording this meeting. A few of you are here. More of you are here. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I'm Howard, as most of you know, and as I know most of you. If anyone I don't know, hello, greetings, salutations. Today's lecture topic is auth, actually, and there's a reason I just chose auth. Auth in React, in a React application with a Rails backend. The reason I say auth is there are two parts of auth, right? There's authentication and authorization. Before we get into that, there's a great question on the table that was asked just before I started recording, which is, how do we set up our backend? And the answer is we're going to build a Rails API backend, which means we're going to cut out a lot of the middleware and a lot of the tools that that Rails comes with for building things like views and dealing with a front end. So it's a much smaller version of Rails, actually, is what it boils down to, with defaults like returning JSON rather than looking for view templates in the view folders. And this lecture is going to start basically from scratch, and we're going to build up a very simple, basic application following along with the topics that we're going to be discussing. So that's the plan. Cool. So with that, what I want to do is I'll take everyone on a quick tour of what I do have, which is very, very basic. And again, I'm not sharing my screen. Please, and I ask you all, if you're going to be here, please ask questions. We'll get rid of that one. Please ask questions. Nope, I wanted that, didn't I? Please ask questions if you're here. So if you're here, ask questions if you have them. There's no question too big, too small. All questions are good questions. And someone else has the same question you do, I guarantee it. So let me just organize this the way I want it. Atom, Chrome, and desktop. Perfect. Wait, where'd my terminal go? Oh, it's right here. Okay, cool. That's what I want. Okay, so let me just walk you through what we have before we get into kind of the meat of the lecture. I started this off with Rails new and create React app. So I just want to show you the code base that we're going to be starting with. Here we are, and I've got two tabs, and I'm just going to scroll up. Maybe, I guess with this one I can't scroll up. Well, this was easy because it was just create React app with this name. Rails was a little different. Here's what I did. I said Rails new, and gave it a name. The -- API, what that does is it tells Rails, set this up as an API only. In other words, no views. We're going to be rendering JSON. And so you're cutting out a lot of that, like I said, the extra sort of bloat that we don't need for an API. For our controllers, they'll be defaulting to render JSON if we use scaffold generators, which I am using with that big asterisk. Like, don't use scaffold generators unless you know exactly what you need from them and you're going to cut things out. I also, by the way, added a flag of no test framework. It looks like that didn't catch on this. Maybe that only works with the smaller generators because it clearly created a bunch of test folders. Anyway, auto bundle with the Rails new. Then I tried to run a scaffold generator before CDing into my new Rails application, so that didn't work. But then when I actually did CD into my brand new Rails application, I ran a scaffold generator, and what I have is a user which just has an email and a password digest, and that's it. We're keeping this very, very basic, and so the smaller piece is hopefully the easier for the demonstration, the easier to understand. The standing question in the chat is, are these created separately or within the same directory? And my answer is separately, at least to start with. I have a master parent folder that's holding both, but these are completely separate. I have Rails new and create React app, which creates two parent folders, one for the front end, one for the back end. They happen to be living in the same grandparent, I guess, folder within this particular application, but each one's going to be in its own folder for now anyway. So I created a user with a scaffold generator, and I created a secret. I figured what better way to talk about auth than to have a model called secrets. So users have secrets, and of course, we don't want people to see secrets unless they're ours, right? We only want to see our own secrets, that kind of thing. So, and of course, I forgot to run the no test framework flag when I ran these. So these came with test frameworks. Again, if we're not going to use this stuff, we should delete it. Otherwise, we should use it. So secrets simply have content and user ID because I know that I'm going to create a belongs to relationship. So then from there, what I did, and I just want to show everyone exactly what I did so you know exactly how much work I've done, which is very little. But what I did do is I found my gem file. I added bcrypt, and I actually didn't mean to add this one, but it looks like I didn't comment it out. This is for later. But I added bcrypt and I added rat cores. Who remembers what bcrypt does for us?
Allows you to use it has secure password.
Yeah, so in my model, in fact, I did that. I found my model user. I said has secure password. And what's the difference then? What will my password now look like in the database?
Oh, it'll be salted and all encrypted.
Yeah, it'll be hash salted. It'll be deliciously hard to read. So I also grabbed has many secrets because I know I want that relationship. I put validators on this model for name, email, and wait, did I create a name? Actually, don't think I did I? Whoops. Oh, I didn't migrate yet. Oh, so I haven't done anything yet. Email, I guess we'll add, why not? We'll add name as well. Okay, whoops, other way around, right? I've not yet migrated. This is brand new. All right, so email, password digest, and name, why not? And we also have timestamps. So then in my user model, I have validations, presence validators for name and email. Now, why don't I have a validation for password here on line 4? Anyone remember this from Rails? Why don't I need?
Well, if you have your encrypted password, it's not going to generate a duplicate, so you wouldn't have to validate it?
Not exactly. I want my users, every single one of them, to have a password. But why is this okay that I don't have presence true here? Has secure password, and that's right. Justine wrote in the chat, has secure password is already checking. So has secure password comes with a password validation for presence. Yep, that's exactly right. Cool, nice job. So we also validate our email as uniqueness. I'm going to use email for login purposes. That's why I'm doing that. Any questions about this setup as we go, feel free to fire those questions off. If we glance at secret, I have belongs to user and validates contents for presence too. I don't want any empty secrets. Okay. So this is our backend. I have not run my seed file yet. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Rat cores, what does that do for me? Oops, actually I wanted that open. What does rat cores do for me? What does cores stand for? Anyone? Cross-origin resource sharing. Yeah, exactly. So cross-origin resource sharing, or CORS, as we can see here. This allows us to, in other words, we can now configure the API to say, okay, you're going to accept requests from resources other than your domain, which makes sense because it's an API. In fact, it's going to have to, right? Okay, so that's all I've done so far with the gem file. I went ahead and bundled again, so I'm just kind of showing you in order what I've done. There's a couple of other things I still need to do that I haven't done. What about for rack cores, for example? What do I need to do? Anyone? Any configurations I still need? So I need to yeah, exactly. There you go. Nice job. Alex is coming in with the response there in the chat. I need to set up my cores initialization here. So my configuration, which is uncomment this guy in my config initializers cores file. And what this is doing is saying, who are we going to allow requests from? What resources, what kind of headers, and what kind of requests are we going to allow here within this application? Insert before 0 just says, like, make sure we get this middleware loaded right away. At least that's my understanding of that chunk there. Cool. So example.com should be replaced with your domain. We can use the star or catch-all, meaning allow every request of any type with any headers from anyone, and we'll process it. Okay. So this allows us now to send requests. For now, I'm going to leave this wide open. We may come back to that and hard code maybe our own domain, which would be like localhost 3000 or something. I made one other change that I didn't show you yet, and that's just to set the port to 3001 rather than 3000, so I don't have to keep remembering that when I run my Rails server. So that's the only other thing I think I did so far within my Rails app. Real quick, let's have a glance at what we got with our scaffold generators. You get the 7 RESTful routes. You get set user method, strong params within your model controller. So for users and for secrets, I get this exact same stuff. And there is a slight problem because this thing just looks at the database and says, oh, password digest. But of course, these things come in as password, not as password digest. So I should change that. Oh, actually, just for user controller. Now that's a little better.
Howard, quick question. On the controllers, did the render JSONs come in automatically because you selected the -- API when you?
That's correct. So that's a great question, Sally. The reason that all these say render JSON, I didn't type a thing. You saw me type the very first thing I did, which was actually to delete the underscore digest on this guy here. All this came with my scaffold generator because I used -- API. Again, and I say this many times, like do as I say, not as I do. If you're going to use a scaffold generator, make sure that you adjust it accordingly to your needs and not have a bunch of extra stuff in here that you're not using that's dangerous and bad. Don't do that. But anyway, for now we're gonna leave all this, and then eventually we'll trim out what we're not going to use or something. Maybe we won't, but if I don't, it's not a reason. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. And we will change these quite a bit actually as we go. But this is a really nice way to start and down and dirty, get going. So that's what we're doing. Notice I did not namespace. I'm not going to bother just because that's not what I want to focus on here. I really should have like, I should set this up like API V1 this or V2 or whatever version I'm on. I really should do that. I'm not going to right now just because that's not what I want to focus on, and we can get done what we need to. We can show what we need to without some of those extras. So again, do as I say, not as I do. Let's look real quick at what I've done with app. Real easy. I cut out everything that came within app, which app is of course sort of what you get with create React app is your main component that gets rendered. I cut everything out except for this string, this sort of statement. Doesn't look like a string because it's inside of JSX, but it comes out as a string. And what else did I do? Oh, so let's close this up. And I added 2 folders, components, which is currently empty, and services, which is currently empty. And then you see app here. That's it. That's all I've done so far. So real quick, let's get these things running. Just make sure that these things aren't broken, which you really, well, there's not a lot to look at yet, but we'll look at it anyway. And then we'll start talking about auth. Okay. So let's just see that this thing runs on localhost 3000. I should get something like, uh-oh, there's problems. Bad things are happening here. That's okay.
Did you switch it to 3001?
I switched it to 3000. I switched my
You mean the Rails server?
Rails server to 3001. This is still starting. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just taking a while for whatever reason to start the development server. Although I do question the time it is taking. This is ludicrously long. It makes me worried. I just ran this 2 seconds ago to make sure it was running. Okay, there we go. Compiled successfully. That's good news. Now we should see it. There's my lecture. We know we're going to want our dev tools. Whoops, downloads. Nope, don't want that. Apparently, Command Option L is downloads because I typed in L instead of J. All right, so now we've got our console open. I can look at React, which of course there's very little going on here other than my app component. And let's make this wide enough. I like my props on the right, along with my state. There is no state. This is just a functional component currently. But now we can get started here. So auth, and I don't have much. I don't have slides for you. I don't have much in the way of code of written stuff. Boy, sorry. I'll try that again. I don't have a lot written down here, but I do have a plan that we're going to follow as far as building this out. Basically, we want to define auth, which means authentication and authorization. We're going to talk about how we did it with Rails, and then we're going to talk about the problem that we have, and then we'll talk about some solutions. And I do have solutions plural. We're going to focus on one particular type of solution, then talk about why there might be other solutions. And I'm really not going to stand here and say this particular way is the best way. You should do it this way, right? I think a question was asked one of the last lectures, are we going to use knock in this lecture series? And the answer is no, but you can. And basically what I'm going to show you is a very high level, very lightweight version of what knock is doing behind the scenes. If you're not familiar, knock is a gem that you can use. Basically, knock incorporates JSON Web Tokens, and that's what we're going to learn about. So by the end of today, we're going to define JSON Web Tokens, what it is, I should say what they are, what it means, and define local storage, if we don't know what that is already, and compare, contrast, local storage and cookies. And we're going to talk about some advantages. Well, I don't know if dangers is too, I'll say dangers, even though it's a little, dangerous in terms of like what are we opening ourselves up to with whatever we do, whatever choices we make, using, and I'll just say browser storage. Okay. Cool. And by the end, hopefully we'll have an auth React application if all goes well. So today, for this part of the lecture, we will not be touching Redux. Redux will not be involved for at least the next 90 minutes or 90 minus 15, so what is that, 75 minutes? No Redux. This afternoon, we're going to take what we talked about this morning, and we're going to put it into our travel app that we've been building. And there might be a little carryover from this morning into that, and then we'll pick up our travel app, and we'll hopefully get some basic auth implemented in our travel app. Of course, our travel application that we've been live building uses Redux from the start, so that means that we will be using Redux. So we'll look at it with strictly React, then we'll think about Redux this afternoon. Okay, but the process is going to be the same, right? React and Redux are just differences in how we're handling our state, and that's no big deal, right? We can go one way, we can go the other. Cool. So with that, let's just kind of get some stuff going here. I've created a user, and I've chosen Pat for my seed file just to be like as generic as possible. I don't mean if your name is Pat, you're generic. I just mean like I didn't have anyone in mind. So I don't know if we have any volunteers. If anyone would like to be in the database, let me know. I'll be happy to pop you in here as a user. I just want to create like 2 or 3 users and some secrets. So maybe you don't want to share your secrets, but that's okay. So whoops. Whoa, nope, don't want to do that. All right, let's see. Chris wants to be in. Chris, and I'm sorry, but you're all going to be the same. You're all going to be your name at yourname.com. Don't worry, I know you're Chris, not yours. Okay, you're all going to have the same password. So let's see. Babs. You all have the same terrible password. That's the worst password you could ever use, besides maybe like 123 or 1234. Okay, that's enough users for now. Let's create some secrets, and I should say, let's just say Pat equals, whoops, and Chris equals, and Babs equals. Okay, so if you want to share some secrets with me, fine, and I'll throw myself in the mix too. I'll share some secrets with you. I don't mind. I like you all. Oops. Okay, so Pat, I don't know who Pat is. Pat.secrets. In fact, we don't need Pat. Let's use us. We'll just stick with us. This is Howard, not Babs. Okay. So we have Chris, Babs, and Howard. Chris, do you have any secrets you want to share? You certainly don't have to. And they can be fake or real or whatever you want to do. Please nothing too real. let's go ahead and throw that out there now.
I secretly want to finish this course.
That's a secret, huh? Okay. Most students, that's less of a secret, but that's totally fine. Let's see. I'll admit wholeheartly that, this is true. This is totally real. Especially, I would say it since I have a baby, but it's honestly since I've had like nieces and cousins and nephews. I love the Moana soundtrack. I do. I sing along with my daughter. It happens almost every day. Anyone else have any secrets they want to share? Another secret of mine is I could eat a gallon of guacamole. I don't know if I spelled that right. Guacamole? I don't know. or hummus daily, or both. I could do it. Anyone else have any secrets they want to share?
This is Babs.
Mhm.
I can't function at all without coffee, which I haven't had yet.
Oh yeah, okay. Content, I can't function without coffee. I'm the same way. This is cup number 3, actually. Oh, there's some left. Oh, that was hot, sorry. I'm the same way. Let's see. Any other secrets, Chris or Babs, you want to share? We each have 1, I have 2. That's good enough, I suppose. Actually, it'd be nice to have like a couple more. Whatever. I won't harass you. What's another secret of mine? I have lots.
You could say, I want a new car or something. I don't know. Need a new car.
I want a new car. Yes, for sure.
Or I want to win a new car. How about that?
Okay, I want to win. I dream winning. That makes it more like, oh, who does that? Well, we all do, I suppose. I am, what else is secret about me? I don't know. I am I tell way too many dad jokes, and I started before I was a dad. Okay, that's enough for now. We can set up. What's that? Did you have one more?
Let's hear a dad joke.
Oh man, I don't. You know, it's funny. Okay, and I don't have them on the spot. They are mostly puns that just come to me. So it's like ingrained. I can't just like tell you a dad joke. I probably could if I thought about it. Okay, I'll tell you real quick. So it's off the ferry, right? And he's walking in the city and he's going to the Hallmark store. And he's just like, gosh, he's struggling with this decision. How could he not? He was stuck between a dock and a card place.
That was good.
You didn't have to say that. Okay, all right. That was it. That was one. That's it. I'm done. No more dad jokes. Sorry. Okay, the number of participants is dropping. Sorry, guys. That's okay. All right. So let's run the seed file. Let's get back to business here. Let's see. So I need to kill my server. Let's run Rails DB migrate. Cross our fingers here that we have everything we need. It might fail. If it does, we'll fix it. Then we're going to run seed after that, assuming that migration works. Man, this is running slow. And I always like to check in my console just to make sure that whenever I create a backend, I want to make sure that the relationships are there, everything I expect to be there is there. So I think Chris was our first user. I think I was the second user. No, I was the third user. I think Babs was the second user. So let's see, Chris.secrets. Okay, that looks good. Howard.secrets.count. That's good. Babs.secrets. I can actually make these look a little bit more readable, I think. Maybe not. Babs.secrets. Cool. And then let's see, like secret.third.user was me, okay? And let's just make sure that was mine, secret.third. That's it. Okay, this is looking good. I like the way this is looking. I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna say that I think we have what we need here. So let's kill our seeds file for now. And let's get, real quick, let's talk about, so the old way. The old-fashioned way. What did we do with Rails? First, let's define. Let's define some stuff up here. Let's say authorization. Oh, sorry, authentication versus, oh, come on. Authorization. Let's get some definitions going here. What is what here? Authorization. Okay, authentication, what does that mean?
You are who you say you are.
Exactly. You are who you say you are. And how do we validate this?
With a password?
Yes. So we need credentials, which is usually a combination of a unique identifier. And we usually use username or email and a password.
Is that in the sessions controller? I know we don't have one yet, but
Yep, very often. Okay, so in the old way, we would build a sessions controller, right? Usually we would have a sessions controller. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Sessions controller, usually, or often, whatever. And what method did we use for authentication? What method did we use for authentication?
authenticate?
Yeah, exactly. We would use the authenticate method from AR, active record. I'll just write that out, active record, which requires decrypt and has secure password, right? This is basically it, right? This is how validation worked, I should say, excuse me. This is how validation works. Authorization, what is authorization?
You're allowed to be in the part of the app that you are.
Exactly. So definition, now that we know you are who you are, now we know who you are. So I'll just write that out. I won't put that in parentheses. Now that we know who you are, or I should say once we know who you are. Once we know who you are, somehow the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland just popped in my head. Who are you? Once we know who you are you allowed to do the thing you're trying to do, okay? And so this could be any request, a get, put, post, get, post, patch, delete, like can you see the thing you're trying to see? Can you send the form you're trying to send? Whatever it is, are you really allowed to do the thing you're trying to do? That's authorization. So authentication versus authorization. How did we do this? How did we authenticate in Rails? Okay, so how did we authorize in Rails? Anyone?
Didn't you look at who the current user was?
Yeah, so we needed, and so that which leads us to where? What does that mean? We usually created a method called current user,
And
right?
then on login, you'd only permit actions if you were the current user.
Okay, and what did current user depend on? That method we used to build.
The ID.
Okay, so how did it get the ID? What hash should we, what browser side, what hash should we use stored on the cookies that contain information that we would update that information on sign in or on login or sign up?
I think it went into
Session ID.
Session ID.
The session, yes.
Yes.
So a combination of, and I really should start with the session hash, which was sent and stored in cookies on the browser, and and helper methods such as current user, and then we'd often would create something like logged in, maybe, which often would just like look and see, is there a current user, and maybe like some sort of authorize, and then it would be like, you know, whatever resource, something like that, right? So these are some helper methods we might commonly build inside of our application controller. That's what we used to do. But we needed the session hash, right? So that's the old-fashioned way, and I guess I should have, no, this is what kind of applies here. And so we'll just kind of duplicate this and put it up there. So the old-fashioned way, right? We would do that kind of stuff. What's the problem now? What's of all these pieces, what's missing? Anyone?
Do you have access to the session in React Redux land?
Okay, that is a great question. And that is the question. This is the piece that's missing, right? So it used to be that, for example, right, user, so this was the flow. So we're kind of still in the old-fashioned way of Rails flow. Okay, user login, which would send credentials, which would be validated or authenticated, which means that session stores a unique identifier, which is usually the ID, and then on subsequent requests, so then what this would do then, once we did that, is the request would be sent back to the front end. So in fact, because the back end and the front end are like running on the same server, so Rails is just like, here you go. So the Rails says, let's store the session in cookies, and including the ID. So whatever that ID is, usually is the user ID. Then, with each request that wants to be authorized, Rails just looks and says, is session holding? And if so, is it the right one? Right, that was basically it. Does anyone have any questions about this? Because I think it's important that we kind of review this so we have in our minds what the flow is, because if we just start right off the bat with React and we've forgotten this stuff, then that's a problem. So that's why we're spending a little bit of time going over this. Does anyone have questions about this?
I have a question, but you can veto me if you want.
I always reserve the right to veto. Just kidding. I'll answer your question to the best of my ability, or at the very least, or the very worst. The worst thing I would ever say is, look, that's just not something we're going to dive into right now. And sort of.
Great. So, in my app, I chose to get fancy, and I'm planning to kind of use the same Rails side if I can. And I use this gem called Rollify that lets me stratify my users into different roles and then direct permissions off of that.
Sure.
Is that, can I still use that in the land of React Redux, or is that kind of?
So you can absolutely still have, you can still set up your enums, your roles, whatever gem you want to use, whatever pattern you want to use, to say that you have administrators, owners, users, whatever, different levels of user, whatever you want to do there, you can still do 100% no problemo. However, the issue is still, how do you authenticate, right? And once you authenticate, so once you have authenticated, you can set up your routes to say, so the whole idea, right, the whole issue is we want to know who that current user is and make sure that they are who they say they are. So first, we have to authenticate them. Then once they're authenticated, and we'll talk about this here in a minute, because like, to some extent, this can all still work. And so that's kind of going to be our first step. We'll look at like, can't this kind of still work? And the answer is kind of, right? We'll get started with this and it'll kind of work. And then we'll see where it sort of fails and why it's nice, why we need to take more steps. But yeah, you can still use whatever, if you have Rollify or whatever kind of role manager you're using, whether it's custom, whether it's a gem, whatever, you can still do that, yeah. But you still need to know like, who is the user? And then once you know who that user is, we need to persist the identification of that user within a particular browser session, or even from a particular IP address, from a particular computer, whatever the case is, so that you don't have to log in every time but every time you close your browser, because that's kind of like where the pain is. So let's actually kind of get started with that. So that's a great question. Any other questions? Okay, so we're gonna do, and I'm trying to, let's see.
Don't forget to commit.
Thank you. Yeah, I probably should commit. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Honestly, I haven't even, I'm gonna do something terrible. I haven't even initialized the Git repo. No, Rails automatically does that, doesn't it? No, yeah, it does. Okay. Does create React app automatically? No. Yes. No. What is? I don't have a remote though, do I? No, I don't have a remote yet. I should commit. I'm probably just going to commit one giant commit after this lecture. Say lecture 1 and lecture 2. Don't do that, but that's probably what I'm going to do. I appreciate the heads up, and usually I would say yes, let's do that along the way. But I think for the sake of time, I'm going to do something terrible and just like build the whole thing out and then use one giant commit. I don't ever do that, but I'm going to do that just for this lecture. So with apologies for terrible Git manners and appreciation for the heads up. In this one, I think I'm going to skip that. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so let's look at this thing running. Let's get both of these servers running first of all. So Rails S, that's going to run on port 3001 and npm start. And just in case I need them, I'm going to create new tabs for each of these so that actually I don't nearly need one for my front end, do I now? Whoa, what happened there? There we go. So I just want to be able to like drop into my Rails console if I need to, so I have that open. All right, so let's see if that ran. It did, it's up and running, this is great. So what we're gonna do is, so first let's just start, I'm gonna start with like everything in app, and we're gonna slowly change things as we go. First of all, I'm gonna change app to a class component, so that gives me, the ability to add lifecycle methods, which is really what I'm looking for here. And that's the main reason why I'm doing this. So let's do that first. Oh no, okay, I just lost track of what I was doing. Okay, there we go. Render, and then return this thing. I think I want it like that. There we go. So this just make sure, and I'm going to check along the way that we didn't break stuff. That's still working. Export default app, that's still working. And what I want to do is I basically want to, at the top of this render, within my, instead of saying auth lecture, I want to say something like welcome user, right? And I want user to actually say the name of the current user. So that means that what components then do I need, like off the bat? Like what do we know we need to be able to do? By the way, I'm going to skip signing up because we have some seeds. I'm going to stick with just logging in and logging out. Anyone? What do we need here?
We need the props for user.
Okay, so we need some, yeah, so we need some, like some initial state, you mean?
Yes, and probably map state to props.
Okay, we're not gonna use Redux in this lecture.
Oh, okay.
We will absolutely use it this afternoon. Or,
okay.
Going forward with our live build series, but we're gonna stick with just React on this application.
So we need
that's
some
a good thought. Yeah. We need some state. That's exactly right. So let's think about our state that we want. So this dot state equals, what do we need here?
User with name.
Okay, so yeah, and I think current user is going to be good. So let's just say current user. At least for now, we're going to say current user. I'm going to start off with null, okay, which means like there's nothing there. Besides that, what do we need? Anything so far? And our first, so before we just start building willy-nilly, my first goal is to be able to log in and then see that I'm logged in by like seeing welcome Howard or something like that, or welcome Babs, welcome Chris. Okay, that's my first goal number 1. So let's see if we can get that started. Let's kind of let's make that as a goal. So currently, first goal. First goal, log in and get a current user. Okay, that's our first goal. Okay. Whoa, no. Oh, what's this telling me?
We got your super method.
Yeah, I need to call super. So super props, or just super, there we go. And that should solve that error. And we're still here. So what do I need then if I want to be able to log in? This is my goal. Oops, wherever I wrote it. This is my goal. I want to log in and get a current user. Let's see what happens. So let's make that our goal. Let's make that happen. How do we do that? What do I need? A form, yes, exactly. I need a login form. And since it's a form, let's make it a component. So that is one thing that I will do. I won't say properly, but at least something like properly. So I'm going to say login.js. So let's see, import React. Yep, React from React. And I don't think this thing needs to be, let's say, const login. This is going to be an arrow function. And I know I'm going to export default this thing. I know then that I'm going to go ahead and split app off to the left. Okay, so that way I can see them both. And by the way, tell me if this needs to be bigger or smaller, if you can make sure that, I want you to be able to see everything on my screen as I go. So please tell me if you can't. So I'm going to export this thing, which means that I need to import it. Import login from, whoops. Is there a question? Okay, okay, cool. And basically, I'm just going to say login. And by the way, this is kind of like how I like to flow. As soon as I build something and I include it and I know where I want to put it, let's just put that here. Welcome user, login. I want to make sure that this thing shows up. Expected assignment, blah, 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 const login equals this thing. Oh, duh, return. Let's just say.
Needs a div or something.
Yeah, we're going to turn it into a div. Let's just see let's just make sure this is connected.
Okay.
There's hello from login. That's good news. And as you mentioned, you said a div. I think a div probably makes sense here to start with. Div, and I'll just give it like, I like, if I don't know what I'm going to do with my CSS, like that might not be the best thing to do, but for now I can just give everything a class name of whatever the component is, which makes life easier down the road when I want to change something. So I know that this thing, wait, what did I do? Oh yeah. So I know this thing needs to be a form. Okay. And I know this thing needs some inputs. What inputs does a login form need?
Type.
It needs type, yep. So I'm going to do this.
It needs like a text area.
I think type text is probably good enough for these guys. What else does it need? It needs a name, right? This is going to be email. Is that enough for now?
Submit.
It definitely needs a submit. Okay, so that's easy enough. Let's say input. Let's just do it. Let's just be consistent, I guess. I'll open this up this way. Let's say type equals submit. And this one should have a value of like login or something. Cool. So besides email, what do we need?
Password.
Password. And I think I kind of like having a placeholder in these, so I can just say like placeholder, email, and password. Okay. I'm gonna throw some breaks in here just so that these are stacked. rather than inline. I just like the look of that better. Somewhere I forgot to close something. These all need to be closed. Oh yeah, break statements can't be written that way in React. They have to have the closing slash. Cool, so that looks good. What else do I need for this login form?
Don't we want to obfuscate the password somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I should say type, instead of text, I should say password. And if I do, so let's just think about that. Basically, as you mentioned, now if I type in this thing, nobody can see it. I'm going to leave it as text for this demonstration so that we can see. But yes, once you're done. So now I want to be able to see what I'm typing in case I screw something up. Why? I want to know why. But that's like a note we should make, like make sure to change this back to password type. Yep, good call. What else does this form need? Like, so what happens if I click login?
You need some event handlers?
Yeah, what kind of what do I need to listen for?
Click.
Well, maybe.
Submit.
I could listen for click, right? I could make it work. But I think submit's going to be a lot easier to work with. So on submit, because I want to listen for this form to submit. And I know I need something here, right? What about my inputs? What do these things need?
On change.
On change, cool. So I need on change and I need on submit. So, and I don't have either of these yet. These will probably be the same. So I'm just going to say handle login form change or something like that. Handle, yeah, that's good enough. But where are these going to come from? And where's this, handle login form submit. It's a long name, but that's okay. Where are these going to come from? What do we think?
We're going to create them.
Yeah, we're going to create them. Where should we put them?
In the
Right now,
parent.
you have to put them in app
Yeah, why?
because it's a streamlined form for login there.
Yeah. Okay, okay, let me just say for the sake of argument that I could put my submit and change handlers right here inside of this function. Right? I could do it. But what's the problem?
We
What
want to
about-
put it in the parent, just in case you have other children that need to inherit from there.
That's one reason to put something in a parent. But I would say I'm not likely to have any other login forms but this one. Okay? But that's a good thought, for sure. So there's a big glaring reason why this, at least the handle submit needs to be currently, anyway, the way I have it set up, needs to be an app. Why? Or should be an app, at least I think. What's going to change when I log in?
The state.
What state? The current user state. And that's the piece, and like this goes back to what you said, Sarah, that's the piece that I know this current user is going to be used in various components down the road, right? There's no doubt in my mind that other components, I say people, by the way, I personify React components, other people are going to need to know about this current user, right? And so app needs to know. So that's why I feel like at least handle login form submit should be in app. The other advantage currently for this demo is if I put my other ones in app, then I can see everything in one place, which is really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, even though it's kind of annoying, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to say handle login form change equals this thing. And I'm going to say, basically just duplicate this. This is going to be handle login form submit. And let's talk about on change. What does this need to look like? We're going to kind of speed through this. Okay, we're not going to take too much time thinking about what this thing needs to look like. We should know by now, hopefully. What can I do with this thing?
Well, I guess you're going to set state and grab the name from the event as well as the value from the event.
That's exactly right. Okay, so then which means what other state do I need?
You'll need a password and a email.
Yeah, and I think I should keep them together. I'm going to keep them under login form. with an email and a password. Okay, is everybody okay with this so far? Like I'm gonna put my login form state in its own object and it's all within state. So now what I want to set state is login form, and login form. Does anybody remember the syntax here?
Use the spread operator.
I can use the spread operator if I want. What would I be spreading on here?
Just have to state that login form and then.
That's right. And then what else?
Email and password.
And how do I do that with the I'm using the same on-change handler for both. And how I can do that because of some syntax that ES6 brought us when it comes to declaring property names, right, and values. I'm grabbing the name and the value from my event target, right, which means I can do what here?
Was it bracket name?
Yes, square bracket name pointing to the value that I grabbed as well. Okay, so now I'm handling I should now hopefully be updating my state, but what do I need to do? What piece is missing from my app to my login here? Is it
Passing them as props.
Yes, I need to pass as props. So what props am I going to pass? I know at least I know I want to pass both of these. So I'm just going to say for login now, we're going to say handle, and I'm just going to call them the exact same thing. This dot handle. Okay, duplicate that. Handle login form change is now going to be handle login form submit. Okay, and then I can destructure those here, which makes life easier for me. Handle form change, handle login form submit, and now I've already actually got these set up that way intentionally. All right, I did that on purpose. So this thing works with our on change, and what we're looking to see is when I type inside of here, does my state change in my login form? And it looks like it is changing appropriately. That's good news. So one further thing I could do would be to pass those values back down. In fact, we should really do that, I guess, to make this a controlled component. So I can say email equals this dot state dot login form dot email. Likewise for password. I don't know why I'm writing these separately, but anyway, password. And now I can pass those as well. Email, password. And now I can make these controlled components by saying value equals, and then email and password. Okay, let's just make sure that we didn't break anything when we did that. Oh my gosh, there we go. Save. Save. Okay. Let's see what happened. Now let's watch React again. I'm watching my login form. I should see my state change. Hopefully it is, and our password is changing. Good news. Okay, so this is working. I'm going to tuck that away for now. And let's talk about what my form submit should look like. Now we're getting kind of into the meat of things here. What happens? First, what's the first thing I need to do with this?
Prevent default.
Prevent default. So event.prevent default. Okay, great. And so now at the very least, console log not going anywhere, right? So I should see this console log with no page refresh now when I try and submit this form. Great. Not going anywhere, no page refresh. Good news. Okay, now what? Anyone?
Wait,
do I do?
what happened to the handle login form change?
I just hid it away so we weren't looking at
Oh,
it.
okay.
These little down arrows here allow us to close chunks, right? So like if I open up, this case, a function, or like anything with like an opening bracket or an opening curly, I can close it. I can close all this stuff, right? I can close each method. It's really nice for reading code when you're focusing on something to hide everything away, and you can focus on what you need to once your code starts to get busy. That's all. Good question, but it's still there. And it's just a visual hiding. It doesn't affect the code whatsoever. Cool. So now what? I'm actually going to get rid of my login.js here. I don't think we need to change this anymore, at least not for now. I'm looking at app in my other one. My README can stay open for now. Now what do I need to think about?
Creating a user.
Yeah, well, and we already created the user, but you mean like creating the current user or logging in, creating our session, right? Somehow compare the data and state with what's stored in the database. Yes, 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 yes. Fetch request. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't look at the chat. These are all the right answer. So basically now I need to submit the info from the form to the backend. I need to then where I will authenticate the user, and if valid, send the user back, okay, to the front end. And then I can set my state. Then, with that response, set my state, all is glorious with the world, okay? So let's try that, okay? So I can sort of think about building out my fetch request, but we should be thinking like, wait, there's a few things missing here. And first, let's just like scaffold out what a fetch request is going to look like. Fetch this thing, dot then, and then maybe a second dot then. What am I fetching to?
The API.
Okay, yes. That's certainly a good first thought. We're going here somewhere.
Wouldn't it be your server that you have up?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the API, right? That's the same answer. The server that's running is the API. Yes, that's where we're fetching to. So within that server that's running, and this is the part, like, if you're scratching your head, like, I don't know, that should be the answer because we haven't built it yet, right? So somehow we need to build a route. It used to be like a sessions controller, right? Let's create a session. In fact, we could still do that, right? I could go back to my Rails. This is where I wanted this thing to be available to me. I could say something like Rails G controller session. Is it session or sessions when I generate? I think I can just say session. Oh my gosh, I forget. Let's see, session. We'll try to get session. Let's just go for it. See what happens. If it says session, then we'll undo that and we'll go for sessions. Oh no, it says session. Okay, I definitely don't want that. So let's see, what is my Rails D? Is it Rails D controller? Is that right?
I think it's supposed to be plural, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm undoing this. Cool. So there we go. And as I think that was Daniel just mentioned, should be control. Oh my gosh. Oh no, what just happened? Oh, thank goodness. Okay, that was terrible. Careful with your up tabs there. Okay, sessions. There we go. All right, so that should generate for us a controller called sessions, just to be nice and easy. There it is, sessions controller. And I only want, what method do I need here? I really only need one. What is it? Or at least for now, I need two really, actually. But for now, what are the only two methods I need in my sessions controller, at least right now?
Create and delete.
Yes, exactly. So create, so def create and def delete. And let's double check and see what was created. What other file do I need to look right now and see what's going on? There's another file I must look at currently to see what's happening. Unless I know. Anyone? In order to make this fetch request, I have a controller now, but how do I get to my controller according to Rails?
Routes?
Yes, I must check my route file. Yes, yes, yes. So in config routes, right? And I used a controller generator, which is different from a resource generator. It does not give me anything automatically, but that's intentional because I knew I only want these two routes. So what kind of request, and in fact, I'll split this down so we can see them at the same time. What kind of request should create be? Anyone?
Is it a post request?
Yeah, definitely. So post login should go to where? I don't know why I'm mixing and matching those, but anyway. To sessions create, right? I'm sending a post. Why post request?
Because the user's submitting data.
Well, because the user's submitting data and I'm using it to create something. Even though this is abstract, I'm creating a session, quote unquote session. I still think it should be a post request. And I'm actually going to make a delete request to log out. There's arguments around whether this needs to be delete or if it can just be a get request. A lot of people just say this can be a get request. But I'm going to take the argument that because we're actually destroying something, we're going to send a delete request for this. So I'm looking ahead here at what we're going to use for this. So neither of these is a get request, at least not yet. So when I say create, what do I do here? Anyone? What did we used to do? You can tell me what we used to do.
Wouldn't it be users.authenticate or something?
Yeah, so first we need to find the user. How do we find the user?
User.find sub username.
User, well, in this case, email. That's what we used here.
Okay.
And then how do I have access to my email? Through what?
Whatever we passed in.
And how do I access what I pass in?
That's a good question.
It's that magic hash that we still have access to.
Would it come through params?
Yeah, sure would. Params. And then this is a little bit of a trickier part. What goes here? Current user?
Email?
I don't have the current user yet.
I had to guess I'd say email.
Yeah, so let's start with that. So we'll say params email. And if we're not, so can anyone like flesh out or scaffold out the code that we used to have here, what it used to look like? And I'm just going to start with saying, I know it's something like this, right? What's going on here?
Something like if at user equals current user, some current user ID, something like that.
Right, and we no longer have current user, right? Current user is gone. Mm-hmm. So we don't have that helper method, but it would be something like this. If at user, and basically, this is the point where we're doing which part of auth? What needs to happen right now? Authentication or authorization? We're not, and remember, remember that we've already created our users, so we don't need to call save or create. That's why I use the seed file. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to skip sign up for now, just for this demonstration, because we can do what we need to do with just login, and you can extract or take that same pattern and apply it to signing up. So there we go, user.authenticate. So if user and user.authenticate, that's what we're doing right now. We're authenticating. If user and user.authenticate. Now, I used my email to find the user. What do I need? What do I need to use to authenticate the user?
Password?
Yes, the password. So if we find a user based on the email, then we're going to try to authenticate them. If so, this is the part that represents success. Yay! Like we celebrate, we're done. We're walking away. Okay. But what do I actually want to do here? What do I want to return to the server?
Session ID?
Well, I could, okay, maybe, but that's what we used to send. Well, we used to send at least like a user ID or stash a user ID in the session. We no longer have session, at least not right now. So what are we doing here? If we find this user and they're authenticated, what piece of state am I trying to change on my front end?
User.
Yeah, the user. For now, the user itself. And I'm okay with that for now. Like we're going to change this down the road. But for now, let's just send back the user if we find him. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is render, I'm going to create like an error message or something. And I'll say something like render JSON error not invalid credentials or something. Invalid credentials with a status of, I think it's unauthorized. I know it's unauthorized actually, which will give us a 401 or a 403 or something like that. Okay, let's try this at least. So I'm I'm going to pull app over here so we can see it and kind of keep this. Wait, what just happened to session? Oh, this is one that we, oh no, wait, what is going on here? This needs to go. Okay, that got deleted. Don't save, go away. Hopefully it's gone. Yes, okay, good. Sorry, that was the old session controller with a sync with no S. Okay, so let's at least see if this is working. So we're gonna fetch to where? Do you remember what I did for routes? It's right here.
Login.
Login, yeah. And what do I need to do with how do I build a fetch request if I'm sending a bunch of information? What goes here? This should all be familiar if you remember from, and maybe it's not familiar because a lot of you used Ajax for Rails.js. It's like, how do I build a fetch request? Like with Ajax, you could do like .get, and you could say like, you take your form and serialize it, right? And I would ask you, why are you using jQuery and passing this, which would represent the form, or just the form itself into jQuery, and I would serialize it, give you access to the serialize method. We no longer have that, right? So that's why we're going to focus on, like, we can use fetch. You can use Axios if you wanted to, but no jQuery for now. Yeah, exactly. So we need to add headers. We need to add all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to say const headers. This is the way I like to do it anyway. I like to build a variable to hold my headers and then pass it directly as, like this. That's just my preference. You can build it in line if you like. So let's look at const headers. And I know I need a method. This is going to be a post. I know I need headers if I want them. And this needs to be its own object, which I would like to have, for example, content type pointing to, does anyone know what this needs to be?
Application JSON.
Yes, application JSON. After my headers, I need a body if I'm sending information. And I'm going to use a method called JSON.stringify. This is kind of like what we used to do with, like if you're using jQuery.serialize. It's a similar kind of function in what it does. This is something else I like to do, is say something like const user equals, and in this case, basically, I'm going to say user. And I'm going to point, even though it's like user info, I'm going to point it at this stuff. And actually, I'll say user info, actually. And I'll say this.state.login form. And that gives me my username and password. Okay, so we'll save that. And what I'm JSON.stringifying then is my user info. And this thing should be an object. I could also do something like this. I could say user info. And we're going to play with this and like look at it and see what kind of stuff we get. So now I've got my headers. Then I know that, what's the first thing I need to do with this thing?
JSON.
I need to call r.json to turn this thing into something readable. For now, we're going to console log the response. And then once we know it, we'll play with this a little bit, see what changes as we go, and then we'll fix this up and do something other than just console log. So let's try and see what happens. I'm going to let's just submit it. What we get? Okay, unexpected terrible things. Unexpected token, left angle bracket / less than, blah blah blah. What is that telling me? Anyone?
Oh, do you need a return?
No, not that. So, and for the sake of time, we're getting a 404, which causes an uncaught error in my promise. So there's actually two problems here. And the first one is that I used localhost 3000, but I actually built my server on 3001. I didn't mean to do that. That's a mistake I just made. But in order to, I don't want to see red if terrible things happen. So what should I be doing here? Anyone?
Catch.
Yeah, let's catch our errors. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing for now. I'm just going to console log those errors when they happen. So now, actually, you know what? I'm going to change this back just for demonstration. I'm going to save that. So this is still going to go to the wrong place. The exact same thing is going to happen in terms of this horrible stuff. But look, now my program doesn't crash, right? It just tells me in the console, because that's what I did. I said, tell me nicely what happened. Don't give me all that red stuff. So that's what it's doing now with that catch. So catch is if there's a JavaScript error that's caused by all this stuff, then it's handled nicely with whatever we decided to do with it, as opposed to like, we could also put error handling inside of our responses. So now if I change this to number 1, what I hopefully will get back when I try to log in once this thing reloads. Cool. So we actually got 500 error, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wow, what's going on here? Control syntax errors, sessions controller line 5. So we messed up somewhere in here. If user, let's see, what does that say? Does that say any more? Syntax error, unexpected. Why can't I see the rest of this? Can I click on that? There we go. No? Come on. Why can't I see the rest of that? It's annoying. Oh boy, let's see. So I should have gotten into here. User.find. Oh, it might have been this, because find causes a problem. Let's just
Find or create.
Yeah, I probably should.
Find by.
I could have used find by. That would have been better. So let's just see, because what will happen with find if nothing is found?
Crashes.
Yeah. So actually, let's try that first. Let's change it to find by, because I like that suggestion actually. Before we put a by bug in here, which we probably will do anyway. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, of course. Find. Okay, so I screwed this up from the get-go. Find takes what as an argument? You're exactly right. Everyone who said everything is, you're all right, and I'm wrong, right? Find takes the ID and the ID alone, right? Find by is what takes a hash, and that's what I should have used off the bat. So let's see now what happens when I try to log in now. Let's see. I should have saved that. Looks like I'm still getting an error. It's still a syntax error. It's still coming from the same place, line 5. So what I want to do now is drop a by bug. By bug. Okay. And so now I'm going to try to log in, and let's go. We should be in our by bug. Maybe. Else without rescue is useless. That's an interesting error. So wait a minute. It looks like I just have a regular syntax error somewhere, possibly. Def create by bug. Does anyone see us like a regular old syntax error somewhere? I wonder if it's in here. What if I do something like resp equals this thing? And I didn't even catch in my by bug. I'm not even getting to my by bug here. Line 4 is missing a parenthesis. User equals user dot find by, open parenthesis, email parens email, close parenthesis. Am I missing one? Doesn't look to me like I'm missing one. Let's try again. What is going on? What am I missing here? Help me out. What do you guys see? I'm not even catching my by bug. Am I? So let's see. So let's get rid of this for now, so I'm not even using it. I have an if else end. I have a creating user. So let's just comment this out for now and see if we even hit this route. That's a good place to start. No, so I'm not even hitting the route. Okay. Sessions controller, syntax error, unexpected. Oh, whoops, I didn't comment this out. Okay, let's try that again. So log in. Okay, now it looks like we're there. So that's interesting. What is my syntax error here? User equals user dot find by email. So let's just run this code one line at a time in our by bug, see what happens. Nil, that's good, right? Let's look in params, by the way.
Are we sure we used email for user ID?
Yes. Yep. I mean, I have email as one of my, I could find by other things, but like email is what I have in my form. And so if we look at my params, by the way, there is a problem here, right? I really should be using this hash right here. And so let's actually nest this under user. Where are we here? So let's do that instead. So let's say params user email, which should still return nil, right? This guy. Okay, it's still nil. All right, that's kind of good news. So let's kind of like, let's do that first of all. User email, whoops. There we go. And I'm gonna comment this line back in. Let's kind of see if we can get to these one step at a time here. So I'm gonna exit this. Now I'm actually gonna send some information this time. Let's just say Howard and just try and log in. Now we're getting a, no, that's from the last one there. We should be in the bybug again, we're not. Why are we?
Yeah, someone mentioned to use user.authenticate instead of just
No, so I need to find my user. So authenticate is a method. Oh, whoops, this should be at user. There we go.
Yeah, so
Is that what you meant? I think that might be what someone meant. But still, that doesn't explain why we're not in our bybug right now.
Sure.
I'm not in my bybug. I'm try and submit this form again. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to run the code. You're right. So I did have this was a big mistake there. But let's try this first. That should still be nil. Okay. What if I actually enter a valid email? Let's see if that'll work. Howard@howard.com. Okay, that seems to be working. So let's try and kind of code this back in one step at a time. Actually, let's just try and code this back in. All right, save that. And now what I'm going to do is actually try and enter what it should be. Well, no, I want to see the error first. That's the whole point that I'm trying to show first. So let's see let's just exit our bybug when it hits. No, we got rid of it. So let's see what we got back there. There we go. Okay. So there we go, our 401 unauthorized with our error. So that's good news. Okay. So now let's see what happens when we enter something valid. Password. So I think the error was just really that I had that @ symbol for whatever reason without a user. And this should actually return to us starting post. Okay, password filtered. That's interesting. That's fun. And so we could be, why is that coming back filtered? That's fun too. We're still getting an unauthorized here. Password. All right, this is not where I wanted to be hung up right now. It's not liking, oh, params user password, there we go. So I do need to drop this thing in here, and this is actually what I wanted to show anyway. So now if I log in, hopefully I should get my user back. There he is. Okay, so there I am. So the difference is like, if we look at Active Record is being picky about looking at the params that I'm sending, and it's not letting like these random top level params in. It's saying this thing needs to be nested underneath the user that you're sending. So here's the params that I have, right? This password is filtered because it needs to be like nested inside of here. We can't just look directly, sorry, that's not why it's filtered. It wasn't liking that I was trying to access this thing directly, password. It doesn't live directly top level inside of parameters. That was the problem that was happening there. So let's see, does that make sense? Questions about that? And I call this thing user, like if I call it something else, like just like user info, for example, if I save this, let's see the difference, if any, that happens here. I'm going to try and submit a valid user. Let's do a valid user. There we go. And I try and log in now. We get this internal server error, no method, blah, 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 for no class. And now we see that, oops, down at the bottom. User info, like it's like, nah, this is not any resource that I know anything about. So sorry, we're not doing anything for you, right? So, well, like because I have, sorry, because I have user here, right? If I change this to user info, then this is going to work. But that's not what I want. I like user. I'm kind of just showing this is why I like that top level key of user, which is why I like it here as well, because to me that makes good sense. User info. Okay, so sorry that took just a minute to get this thing going, but now that this thing should be working and returning the current user, what do I actually want to happen inside of here? So now I should be getting a valid user back. Okay, assuming that we've authenticated properly. What do I actually want to do here?
Well, I think we want to stash the user ID somewhere and then act just like we did before.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, right now I've got this set up to even stash more than the user ID, but I like what you said, better. That's gonna be a better pattern. For now, we're just gonna store the whole user, right? So let's do that. Let's just say, okay, you know what? And well, you tell me. Like, so first of all, what should be coming back here as far as our response? How should I name this incoming argument?
User JSON, maybe?
User JSON, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. So user JSON, and I could do something like this, right? This dot set state right away. And I could say current user pointing to user JSON. Okay, let's just see if that works. So now I have valid information in my form. Let's go for Babs at babs.com, password. And if we look at React, and I look at my current user, there she is. This is good news, right? Way too much information, by the way, which is why I like what you said, current user. Like, there's no way I ever want password digest coming back. I don't need ID. Well, I probably will need ID, but I don't need like my timestamps, whatever. For now, we're just setting the whole thing, understanding that we're going to trim this down the road. But this is good, right? Isn't it? So, but what if I enter bad information, password 4, first of all, invalid credentials? Do I want this to be my current user, error, invalid credentials?
I would say no.
No, I agree with that 100%. So what should I be doing here? Like, this code is good, but what do I need also, basically?
If status 200 or...
Okay, so looking at the status is a good idea. So how would I get the status, though? Do I have access to the status on this information? I could, if I were more specific with what I'm returning. And there's a reason that when I built this method, in my else statement here, I put a top level key of error. And so what I can do is say, if user.json dot error, right? So basically, user.json is representative of the response I'm getting in JSON format, right? This is the response I'm getting if this thing fails. The top level key there, error, is going to help me out. If there's an error, I'm going to say alert invalid credentials. And in fact, what I could do, I could take this a step further. Because I have Rails, right? Because I have Rails, I can actually include more information here than just invalid credentials. I could do something like details and say something like user.errors, if there are any, .full messages. And this gives me an array of messages in string format, which I could then like map through and alert each one, or like show them somehow if I wanted to. And this would be a really nice thing to use as well. For now, I'm just going to alert this thing. And otherwise, then if this thing is successful, right, this is failure. Failure. This is success. So notice, too, that there's two parts to this in terms of handling this response. There's catching JavaScript errors that happen as a result of this code, but there's also handling server errors, because server error responses, JavaScript doesn't see as a problem in terms of like then catch. JavaScript is like, whatever, just because I got a 500 from my server, that's still a response. So the errors, like the problem is if it causes a problem in JavaScript as well. So it's good. You need to have both, an if statement in here and a catch here, right? so some way of identifying an error and showing it. So now, hopefully, if we save this, we have like a sort of hacky but somewhat useful way now of seeing what's going on. If I try to log in, invalid credentials, no like crashes. This is good news, right? If I look at my current user, it's still null. If I log in with, now let's do Chris at chris.com, password of password, log in, and there he is. Okay. Great. Now what? So now that we, like, wait a minute, what's the problem? What was this whole big thing with auth? Now I have a current user. So now I can use this current user, right? Can't I? Can I use this current user to do stuff and show things, right? For example, now, like, this is, don't do this, but this is like, just for the sake of showing what we can do, I could say user secrets or just secrets, user.secrets, right? Suddenly, I'm returning all of this information, which is, this is not the way to do it. I'm just showing that, like, here we are. Suddenly, I can say, well, now my current user, when I log in, maybe log in. Did I save that? Yes. So now we have Chris's secrets. Don't do this, by the way. I'm just like showing you real quick because we're nearing the end of our time block here. I'm just showing you real quick, like, this is what we could do. This is bad. Don't do this at all, ever. Howard said return the user with all the secrets, like when you log in. No. That's not what we're going to do. But you could, right? Here it is. So here's all the information. And suddenly I have secrets nested under my current user. That's bad. Don't do that. But what I'm showing you is, like, now we have access to this information. So, like, what's the problem, right? And so I can even say something like, and here's kind of heading toward where we're going, somewhat anyway, or at least a hint, something like that. I could have like a header up here at the top, right? Something like maybe it's an H3 that says, or even an H2 in big letters. Let's say something like, instead of saying welcome user, I could check the state. And I could do something like, if there's a current user, this.state.current user, of course, and let's just do this. Let's say const current user equals, whoops, this.state. So now I could say, that just makes it easier to write this statement here, current user. If the current user's there, then let's say current user name. Otherwise, actually I'll say logged in as, this is not Ruby, this is JavaScript. Okay. Otherwise, and I'll do just for readability again, because since I'm kind of cramming this in here. Otherwise, not logged in, something like that. So now I'm getting some immediate feedback as far as, like, is someone logged in or not? Current user is originally set to null, so if someone is logged in, then I should see this. Hopefully, if I didn't just cause any major errors. So not logged in, that's good news. And if we do go ahead and log Chris in at chris.com, password, invalid credentials. Oh, I thought that was right. Howard, password. Logged in as undefined. Ooh, that's fun. Name, current user. Do we not get a name back with our response? Email name. User. Our state. Let's check our React state. React. Current user. Has secrets. Oh, current user.user. Oh, that's annoying. So let's fix that. I want my user directly to be my user in state. So then current user is users JSON.user. So it looks like user is coming back as a key, and that's easy enough to fix for now, hopefully. So now if I say chris.com, password, I log in. I'm logged in as Chris. Great. And there's my current user, which is now actually Chris top level. I didn't realize I had the extra key in there. That's okay. This is good news. So I should probably, like, clear out my logit form and things like that. So what's the whole problem? What's the big deal? Like that was so easy, right? There's nothing that we did so far that isn't the same thing you've already done with Rails. What's the issue though? Anyone? Persistence. Yes, persistence of what, Alex? So like, oh, you know what? Hey, I know I'm in this application right now, but I'm going to go to Google real quick. Google.com. Oh, I didn't even spell that right. Oh, crap. You know what? Never mind. I want to stay where I was. Let's go back to localhost 3000. Here we go. Wait, not logged in. I just logged in. Like now this is annoying, right? So the user is going to go other places. The user is going to refresh the page. The user is going to cause a re-render. Now this is not working, right? And this is where our problem lies. So now I have a problem where I'm not persisting this session, and that's not a good user experience. Okay, so we've really, now we see the problem. Does anyone have questions about that? Like now I have a problem because I'm not persisting my currently logged in user somehow. And that's annoying, right? For nobody wants, sometimes if you log into a bank, right, they'll kick you out in like 5 minutes. But for a lot of applications, it's nice to be logged in indefinitely, maybe for days, weeks, months, maybe just even for a few hours, right? And I think we at least would want a few hours. I think that makes sense. So I do have to actually, unfortunately, like bounce off. I have another meeting coming up, but we've arrived at the problem. And so in this evening, when we get kicked off, which we have a lot to do this evening, I didn't quite get where I wanted to today, but that's okay. Hopefully we have a good foundation of where we're going. We're going to start solving this problem. Okay.
And Howard, could you commit the code?
Yes, I will push this up, and I will share the repository in the React section. It's going to be a little bit. It's going to be like probably an hour before I do that. But
That's fine.
Thank you so much, Howard.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you all for your attendance, and I hope to see you all later today. If not, don't worry. It will be recorded. Talk to you all again soon. Bye.
Howard,
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah.
can you put it on Slack too? Because I'm not in the React section.
Yes, and I'll add you to the React section.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. See y'all.
Thank you.
Stop share. Stop recording.